Superpowers. That's what I'm titling this, because it's something I'm learning the more I go down this path of men's coaching and working with men who are leaders, who are owners, and who are leaders of their family, leaders of their business. And what can happen is decision fatigue. There comes a point where there can be such a backlog of decisions that there can be an overwhelm. So what I do is I provide frameworks that helps alleviate the overwhelm by simplifying things and creating a daily rhythm. Some of you may have heard me, if you followed me before, talk about the core 4 kingdoms. And this is something that comes from the Warrior's Way. And I've adopted it into Alive on Purpose coaching, my own program for men. But basically, the framework is about paying yourself every day in 4 core kingdoms. By striking your sword, that means taking action in each of those kingdoms as a self-investment. Changes your program around what wealth is, because ultimately wealth is time, and we all have the same amount of time under the sun. But in order to build yourself as a leader, as a visionary, as a father and a husband, a family man, you need to build all domains of yourself, all dimensions. So you have to be fit, like an athlete. You have to be smart, like an investor and a scholar. You have to be a good communicator. And you have to be able to keep love alive with your wife and show up as the connected dad. Now, that's a lot of roles. But when you work with me, you get a chance to move through a challenge that I can walk you through, guide you through. That's part of my toolkit. It's a 30-day challenge. And in it, you'll get the lived experience of playing with this technology of the core 4, of paying yourself in these 4 domains: body, being, balance, and business. And when you pay yourself every day in those 4 domains, you stay in balance. Because one of the things that a lot of men struggle with is like, how do I have it all? How do I be the family man, but also make those boss moves at work so that I'm pulling the leadership levers that make the most profit or the most production so that I don't burn out. Because often what happens is, first of all, I just want to slow you down and let you see this mossy rock behind me. I'm on a rail trail path that used to be a silver mining railroad, and now it's a beautiful footpath for bikes and dog walkers and people like myself. So yeah, it took time for me to learn this myself and learn the technology. But I remember the very first client I ever got the chance to work with online was he said to me a year after we'd worked together that the thing that stuck with him most, that was like the gift that kept on giving, was the core 4, was looking at his day and not having to figure out how to manage his time, but just seeing these 4 domains that he needs to pay himself in every day, like fitness, money, relationship, and God. You could call it that. Your connection to God, your spiritual connection with your source code. There's lots of ways to describe it. But when you find a way to slow down and make it part of your rhythm, find a way to pray or meditate so that you get attuned to that perfection of who you are, and with your breath and your embodiment. Also, as you get older than 40, your body starts to tell you that you need to either use it or lose it. Like you got to work it or it's going to stop working. What's that saying? It's either working for you or working on you. And you get to choose your pain. Either you're in the pain of production, where you're choosing to get stronger, and there's some pain in that, but the satisfying kind of pain, or you're in the pain of neglect. That's how it looks. That's how it is. It's like, choose your hard. So there's another framework I wanted to introduce that I got from a mentor, and I also love it. And the 4 quadrants of this framework are CEO, entrepreneur, king, and hustler. And I like this framework because each of those identities comes with a skill set. In order to be a CEO, you have to have a ruthless focus on the numbers and the data so that you work with the margins and increase profit, which is a very different form of leadership than the king, because the king is looking after the prosperity and the long-term legacy and the sort of purpose and heart and soul of the work. The blessing, the king is the blessing. But the king needs the CEO, just like the captain of a starship needs an engineer, or else his starship's not going to get anywhere. So the CEO is that more mathematical, limit-setting quality of a warrior budget. You know, just like you budget your money, your time is also budgeted. So it's most productive and most leveraging your unique abilities as a leader. So we've touched on CEO, superpowers, and king. The other one is hustler. Like, you got to hustle. You never stop hustling. Like, hustling's always going to be part of it, right? To have the grit and the grind to get out there and make it happen. But so many people get caught in the trap of only hustling. And that's where, they say, hard work is a virtue. And of course, hard work is a virtue. I grew up on a farm, and I used to be a tree planter. So I know the value of like the grind and the fulfillment that comes from it. But the caveat is that a donkey works hard. But does it get anywhere? Does it actually gain much from just being a grunt hard worker? No. You also have to work smart, and you have to work hard enough so that you start to catch on, that you have to make better decisions to work smart. So that's the hustler. And to me, the spirit of the entrepreneur and the identity of the entrepreneur is something I struggled with for a long time, and I never wanted to admit that I was an entrepreneur, because I thought, well, maybe it was imposter syndrome. I'm like, well, I'm not a real entrepreneur because I haven't done X, Y, or Z. And only in this last year did I start to accept and realize that I am that spirit has a name. That spirit that drives people crazy to act like insane and reject the comforts of working for someone else or working for a paycheck in favor of following a vision. And then boots on the ground, having the skills to be able to raise money from the ground up, like to create money through contract, to spell wealth into existence through creating value. That's the skill of the entrepreneur, to see opportunities where value could be created with your skill set, and then to go in and execute, communicate, and close on those opportunities. So it's been a slow, gradual acceptance for me of realizing that I am also an entrepreneur, and I've accepted that now. Look at this. There's a beautiful little dog. I think it's a healer. It's a little bit shaggy, but they're actually my favorite kind of dogs. I love healers. So anyhow, those four quadrants keep each other in check too, because you can't let one get out of hand, and you need to be able to rise into executing on all of those skill sets and integrate the habit sets, the mindsets, the heart posture, and the embodiment of being the leader. And that's just what I wanted to talk about today, because, CEO sounded intimidating to me at first. But when I realized, now I'm almost 5 years into my own business initiation, that ultimately it's not that scary. I mean, I've come a long way, and there's a lot more to go. But today I'm celebrating those skill sets, and what I really want to attack is the pain that so many men are in because they haven't had anyone in their corner, or they haven't invested in their own self and self-development. It's funny. I'm going to stop here and we're going to look at the lake. There's Kootenay Lake. This is absolutely just beautiful. There's the Orange Bridge. It's funny because the sector is called personal development. But a better name for it, at least from where I'm coming from, is soul work, because it's a type of work that's hard to grasp. You don't immediately see a result. You don't immediately say, hey, I just installed a new floor in this house, or I just framed up a new building or put a new roof. It's not like the building of seeing visible results doesn't happen immediately. It's a slow process. I just got off a call with a client who was wanting results now, like doing all this shifting of his beliefs, shifting of his mindset of seeing what's possible, and he still has this impatience of like, but I want to be where I want to be now, which is great. That's a fire. But here's another way of describing it. In order to win the long-term game, which is more of a wealth and leadership perspective, is a longer time horizon, you have to not be so in a hurry to get a grand slam home run. Everyone's taught, you should be trying to get a grand slam home run. But here's the trouble with that thinking. A grand slam will really only give you 4 points. And sure, it's an ecstatic rush. It's a big celebration. But it's not what wins baseball games. Grand slams are just 4 runs in. You know what actually runs baseball games? Getting a man on first, getting a runner on base. So rather than trying to swing for the bleachers and always aim for this huge win, this grand slam, start to think about your daily habits, your daily wins of getting to the gym, of facing your business, of advancing to the next step. And those little victories are basically the equivalent of getting a runner on base. Just swing for singles. Just get the ball in play enough so that you get runners on base. And when you get enough runners on base, you're going to start driving runs in. So it's like little, that's the rhythm of just like swing for singles, have consistency, have discipline with what you're aiming for and what you're building. And that's, like I said, that's what wins ball games. And there's a bigger picture of the beauty of Kootenay Lake. So yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. How many minutes has it been? Almost 14 minutes here. And thank you for tuning in. Those are some of the frameworks for the making of men, because that's part of my mission, is in, these times with so much collapse and uncertainty, I'm here to turn men into warriors, turn men into lighthouse leaders rather than tugboats, men who can spell out their vision and reverse engineer their decision making so that they can create those visions of leadership, making an impact, making the world a better place, a stronger place, a more safe and courageous place to create. And ultimately, the other big thing that holds so many back is perfectionism. And I dug deep with someone on this today, because we were trying to discuss, where does perfectionism come from? Because it's such a debilitating thing. And if you scratch down below the surface, not only does perfectionism cause procrastination, which was the actual symptom, is why am I procrastinating? Why am I procrastinating? It's because you have high standards, which is great, but you don't need to be perfect. And the desire to be perfect actually comes from fear of rejection and abandonment. To think that, well, if I don't do it perfect on my first try, then I'll be a failure and I'll be rejected and abandoned and I'll be left and I'll be homeless and it'll be the end, you know? But instead of, or let's just say another way to look at it is to just make progress instead of perfection, and let it be messy, let it be imperfect and incomplete. I mean, that's how I got to be here. And the case in point was, for me, realizing that when I was 17, I used to stand up on stage in my high school and give speeches that I wrote myself to the whole school with absolutely no hesitation. I was such a confident and charismatic speaker. And it was funny, I remember writing this speech, and at the time I was reading Adbusters and I was kind of anti-consumerist. And seeing that we lived in this consumer society, this mind-numbing game that had been sort of laid into us. And so at the end of my speech, I said all these marketing slogans that were really popular at the time. I just listed them. And then one of my favorite teachers, after I said the speech, told me his feedback on my speech was that, you just told us all where to go. I love that, because I didn't know that that's what I was doing at the time. I was just sort of up there having a voice. And but then my 20s happened and my 30s happened, and I didn't really do any speaking. I didn't really get in front of people, didn't really have anything to say. I think I was hiding, and I think I was lying to myself that I didn't have a calling and a message on my heart. So 4 years ago, I began my coaching business after being a therapist, again, which is another defense mechanism, because therapists are hiding in their offices. They have all this knowledge, but they keep it private. They keep it silent. And I remember I took weeks. This is embarrassing. I took weeks and hours I poured in to trying to create my first video assets for promoting my coaching business. And this guy I had helping me, he was so patient and good, but he would hold his camera and he had this gimbal thing and all his tech. And I'd say my lines, but I felt so awkward that I would say, oh no, we should cut that up and do it over. And I'd have to do it over because it didn't feel like it was natural enough. And it was, the embarrassing thing now is that I can turn on my live and I can just talk. I can just talk because I trust that what's coming through me and as me is what the message is that needs to come out. And I know that it's powerful, and I know that it's going to be heard by the people who it can help. And I know that I'm not here for me. I am here for me, but I'm here for serving through my voice as a speaker. So I got out of my own way, but it's like those 2 decades of hiding put me in fear and put me in perfectionism. And now I'm on the other side of that, and I'm actually building out my new website to include professional speaking services, because I do want to get on stages and I want to move people with my message. So that's what I've decided and kind of been shown is part of my unique ability, is my voice, my message, that is ultimately about changing lives and inspiring people to move and to take action, and to connect with themselves, connect with their own genius. So, that whole conversation eclipsed, CEO Superpowers, but also the monster of procrastination, perfectionism, and the fear of rejection and abandonment that underwrite those conditions. And so if we can find out what that fear is and see that it's just a paper tiger, that usually fear is just fear and there isn't much substance to it, then we don't have to be held back by it. So that's my sermon today from the rail trail, and it's gone now on 20 minutes. Thanks for tuning in. Big love to you. Bye for now.